And look at that. That is the legend
Did
herself, Christy Martin.
he?
Christy, how are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Oh man,
Fantastic.
we're
You
rolling
know,
with
I
live
was here
shows.
with you guys like 2 hours ago. I was waiting.
We
I'm like,
heard.
where are they? I'm here, and nobody's talking. Nobody's showing up. This is I'm just backstage. I'm like, geez, I wait 15 minutes. I'm like, Amy, I've
Oh
been waiting
no.
15 minutes. I don't even hear anybody. She said, oh,
Oh,
oh no, no, we
I
got it
feel
mixed
so
up.
bad. I feel so bad. Sorry about that. We
We're on the
just
right time zone now, though.
we
There
explained
you
it that
go.
you were so excited to be on the show that
Mhm.
you were in there 2 hours early. And I'm like, hey man, we love it when our guests are that excited to be there. uh, First off, how are you? How are you dealing with everything? And everyone's still kind of, semi locked in their house. But how did you spend your quarantine?
Yeah, well, I do what I do. Thinking about boxing, trying to figure out how I'm going to get
Mhm.
back to work, and I spend a lot of time with my domestic violence, my nonprofit, like getting things organized and ready to once we can actually get groups of people together again, to
Yeah.
have some events. But unfortunately, we're still kind of on lockdown. Other
Right.
than in Florida, I'm getting ready to have a July 18th. I'm getting ready to have a huge, mega fisted, lots of knockout, great show.
I can't
Absolutely.
wait to hear a
Yeah.
little more about that.
We're gonna get into that too. You know what? The biggest thing is that obviously you have been elected to the International Boxing Hall of Fame. So number one, congratulations. Number two, when you got that call or whenever you got that notification, can you walk us through? I mean, can you describe to us the feeling after the incredible career that you had to be inducted with that first class of ladies being in the Boxing Hall of Fame?
Yeah, it was awesome. I remember I think it was actually on a Sunday, and I was just riding around with my wife Lisa, and she was doing work, and I'm just kind of tagging along, and I get a call from Ed Brophy, um, saying that I had been inducted into the Hall of Fame and being part of that first class of women that would go in as fighters. It's unbelievable. I mean, I was the grand marshal for the Boxing Hall of Fame back in 1996 when there was no thought ever that a female fighter would be inducted into the Hall of Fame. So to go and be back many many times to meet so many of the boxing fans that come year after year, the volunteers that are there year after year, the same people. So for to have their support to be there with me, I was so excited. Oh my goodness, when I got the call to say that it was going to be um, basically canceled until next year, oh, I was heartbroken, heartbroken.
Yeah, yeah, and we all were too because we did a whole show about it when the ballots were released, and of course we saw your name on there. We were like, no brainer on Christy Martin. But whenever they pushed it, we were all like, ah, man, I mean, you're still in technically on 2020, but having to wait a whole nother year, does that give you a chance to kind of reflect on your career, or are you just kind of taking that as like, hey, this is my victory lap, let me just go ahead and show this off, baby, I'm a Hall of Famer?
Yeah.
Right. I think until we actually get the ring and get to be there with the fans, it's not going to feel real. So even though, yes, as of right now, we are Hall of Famers, and like, I guess the induction has kind of informally happened. Um, yeah, no, we have to be there. We have to get the ring. We have to hear the fans that one last time where they're going to announce you, and it'll be kind of like, fight night and getting ready to go out there and
Mhm.
do your thing. And we got to hear that before we could actually feel like a Hall of Famer.
Good,
Yeah,
TC.
you've had three titles. You were a trailblazer. You were also on undercards for some of the biggest names in the sport as well. But what people may not realize is how much of a fighter you've had to be in life. The ESPN article came out, which was phenomenally written. Did you get a chance to read it? After you told the story, did you read how she put it together? It was amazing.
It was great. Allison Glock was the writer,
Yeah.
and she's actually from West Virginia. So we
Ah.
had that West Virginia connection. She came out here to Austin and hung out with me a couple times. Let's see, then she came to a fight in Florida. So, we actually spent some time together, and yeah, we're gonna do more things in the future. A lot of things for on the sexual side, to not, hopefully we can reach out to some people, the parents and the individual that dealing with their sexuality, and just, there's no reason to hide who you are.
So I want to go back for just a second to the article. It details the incident that you had with your husband, and she also went back and talked about the history of domestic violence. When you read your story, can you believe that that's you? Does it seem like you? And when you were going through it, can you just tell people what happened? I can lay it out, but it's your story. Can you tell your story?
Yeah, as far as like reading the story, and I still sometimes feel like a third person, looking in and watching. But Jim Martin was my trainer, my boxing trainer, and most people on the outside thought my greatest supporter. But on the inside and behind closed doors, he was very abusive, very controlling. Not so much physically abusive. Yes, we had some physical altercations throughout the 20 years, but most of the time it was more emotional. It was just a constant beat down. You're on the cover of Sports Illustrated, not because of what you did, but because of what I did. You're with Don King and fighting under Mike Tyson and Chavez and those guys, not because of that you can fight, but because of what I was able to do. It always took the limelight away from the shine off of any success that I had. And people didn't see that. They just saw in front of the camera how he told everybody how great I was, and how he loved me, and it wasn't that. So after many years, I decided I had had enough, and that I was going to leave. And he had been telling me for 20 years, if you leave me, I'll kill you. And I came to realize this was true, but I was also at the point where I don't care. And that's basically, that's exactly what happened. I came home, and he stabbed me repeatedly, cut my leg, almost cut my calf muscle from my leg. I'm still fighting because I'm, at this point, when the attack began, I was like, I don't really care if I live or die. But then, like, midway through the attack, I'm like, no, you cannot kill me. And as he's beating my head against the dresser, and just pistol whipping me, I mean, I'm like, no, I'm going to win this fight. And I felt a gun he was hitting me with it. And I'm like, I have to get that clip out so he'll just have one shot at me. And I was able to eject the clip, get it away from him, put it under me, physically under me. And then I knew that he had one shot at me. I begged him, please don't let me die. Don't let me die. And I knew my lung was ruptured. I could hear the gurgling sound. So I knew, basically you drown in your own blood. And like 30 minutes went by. He kept coming in and looked to see if I had died yet. And I hadn't. So he stands at my feet with my own pink 9mm. And I told him, you don't have the balls to shoot me. And he shot me. So I remember I prayed really hard. God, please don't let me die. Show me some way to get out of here. And it was like almost an immediate answer to that prayer. I heard the shower water turn on, and he had gone to take a shower because he had cut it himself when he stabbed me. And I guess he was going to get cleaned up and tell his story. I don't know what story he was going to tell, but when I heard that shower water turn on, I got out of the house. I was able to get up. I don't know how. Every time before I had tried to get up, and the blood would squirt out, and it would scare me. So I would lay back down. So this time I was able to get up. I grabbed the car keys, and I was gonna, me, I'm an arrogant ass. I thought I'm gonna drive my own self to the hospital, and I get to my car, and it was the wrong keys.
Oh, shoot.
Like, oh my God, I can't go back in there. What am I gonna do? So I basically ran to the middle of the road, and I lived on the end house on this road. So that I went to the main street, and that's exactly what I did. The first car got by me, and the second car, my angel Rick Cole, he stopped, and I handed him the gun and asked him to please don't let me die. And he got me to the hospital. And I was in at the first hospital for several hours for them to get me stable. And then they life flighted me to a trauma hospital, but it's God wasn't done with me, and that was the whole thing. When I finally woke up a couple days later, really got back to my senses, I'm like, two things: God left me here for a reason. That's to help other people get out of the situation like I'm in, and the other thing is I got to get back to boxing, and that's exactly what I did. The day I got out of the hospital, actually, I got out of the hospital in the middle of the night because I didn't want the media to follow me. The media in Orlando was, it was a big story at that time. And I came out in the middle of the night, and then as soon as it got daylight, I went to the boxing gym.
That's an incredible story. And I think that the fact that you had the wherewithal to think about other people as you were healing says a lot about who you are and what you were purposed to do. Because boxing was your physical gift. And I'm sure you learned a bunch of lessons through boxing that you can apply to your life outside of the ring. But going through that, even now when you share your story for other women, do women come up to you because you don't know who's listening? You never really know.
Absolutely, and that's the whole thing that I think is so important. When I go to different places and speak to schools, to jails, domestic violence shelters all over the place. Usually there's that one person that as you speak, for some reason, like your eyes keep coming back to that person. Yep. You're looking around the crowd, you're talking, you're sharing your story, but your eyes come back to that person. And then after you're finished, people come up and say, thank you for coming and this and that. But that person's waiting for everybody to be done, and they'll come to talk to you. And they're the person that you touched, and they're the person that needed you the most. So absolutely. I mean, and that's the whole thing. I think just to get out there, just to share my story and let people know that, hey, if, people thought I was a tough girl. If it could be happening to me, then it can happen to anybody. And that's the whole thing with domestic violence. It isn't about how rich you are, if you're black, white, brown, yellow. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's in every person, every place. Domestic violence is out there, and that's the thing. I ask people to just be aware of your sister, be aware of your mother, your friends. You just don't know. And if you're out with friends and like, there's always that couple where he has to always put her down, but he does it like a playful way. That isn't playful. I mean, after a while, that beat down it's not funny.
Right.
Just to let people know, though, so Jim was tried and he was convicted. Is it 25 years that he was convicted of?
He's in prison for 25 years, and in Florida, it's day for day, no time off for good behavior. Yeah, he's going to be there 25 years.
Jesus.
As it should be. Yeah,
absolutely. And you touched on a good point there, is that a lot of people don't realize it's, growing up, as a guy, it's masculine. You don't cry, you don't do this. If you're around brothers, you tease, you do all these things. In this generation, and the generations before, that's kind of how we played around and how we interacted with each other, not realizing when we teased people, when we got older and teased our kids and things like that was in itself a form of tearing someone else down. And even if you did mean it good-heartedly, you didn't realize how much you were hurting someone else mentally and emotionally and things like that. And it's something that I know a lot of men, and especially myself, have had to come to grips with, about how we were raised and what was acceptable and what was not acceptable, and these different things. So not only the females that you interact with, but the men out there that maybe hear you talk and everything, do any of them ever approach you and go, here's something that happened, or here's how I was, or does that ever happen?
You know what? The truth, it has not. But I do think that I always talk about exactly what you were just mentioning. How you grow up and you think you're teasing, and you don't really mean anything by it. but teasing, you're just fun.
Yeah.
But when it's with your partner, and it's the same thing kind of over and over, and it's always a put down, you know. And the
Right.
truth is, as a woman or a man, you just need to stand up or, you know, say, hey, you know, I don't like that,
Right.
and it is hurting my feelings. And if it continues, then there's the problem, because I'm bad to do that too. I mean, I'll be teasing, and then I realize, whoa, that wasn't right, you know. So I'll apologize. But yeah, and I think that is part of how you grow up, and especially like my dad. That's how he shows love, and that's how you know that that's what he means is love. He's just a hard guy. I mean, he's, you know, you fall down, he says, come over here, I'll help you up. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, he's teasing. He doesn't mean anything
Right.
mean by it, but so many people do mean that. That's like the way it starts, you know. And it is mean.
There's a difference between picking on someone and then abusing them. In the time of quarantines across the country, there were spikes in cases of domestic abuse, because now women, primarily women, were trapped with men who were abusing them. At the same time, there was a clip of Billy Joe Saunders actually flippantly talking about men. If you have a woman who's getting mouthy with you, this is how you deal with it. Did you see that clip?
Absolutely did.
And what was your did you respond to him? I didn't see.
No, I didn't respond to him, because sometimes, you know, you're better to say nothing, I guess. But I don't know. No, that's probably not true. But I didn't, because I couldn't find the right words to say in response to that. But I did talk to other people, and we used that as an example of, this is just not acceptable behavior. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the boxing commission in England suspended him for some time for that. And maybe even he may have been ranked with the WBC at the time, and they dropped him from the ratings. But and that was a great stand and a great statement by them. It's just there's some things you don't joke about. I mean, and that's one of them. And I'm not sure it was a joke. He seemed pretty serious and not too laughy about it. And it doesn't matter. This is one of those things you would never joke about.
Well, we did in that instance see a response from Clarissa Shields, getting on the heavy bag and saying, well, you know what, here's my response to that. When you see,
let me
go ahead.
interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Her response, and that's one of the things that we did talk about, was her response was so much the wrong response, because, you know, to say you're going to attack violence with violence, that's not the way that it works. And so she probably maybe meant well, I'm not sure, but that was the wrong response. I mean, the right response was more like, you need counseling. You know.
Right, you need counseling, and your wife may need to get up out of there.
And your wife needs up out of there.
Yeah, right. So kind of circling back to that, my question really was, you looking at this young crop of female fighters that are in there doing their thing, Clarissa and Amanda Serrano and so many ladies like that are still pushing the same fight that you kind of had, like pushing purses forward for bigger purses, more spotlight on the fighters, the female fighters, and things like that. What do you think about this young crop of ladies that are in there putting it down for the sport?
You know, I think there's some of the good talented fighters. Katie Taylor, which I know is getting a lot of crap for not always doing the right fights, but she is like getting the best promotion, really. So hopefully she can turn it around, keep working hard, and you know, have good competitive fights. That's what hurts women's boxing. That's why I think that the UFC has really taken over so much, because the best fights the best all the time. I mean, you don't really get, you just don't get a mismatch too much. What people tell me, I don't know, because I don't watch the UFC. I don't like the MMA stuff, but it's like they always are like the best ones fighting the best ones, and that's the things with women's boxing. We need the best ones fighting the best fighters, and you know, as far as purses and things like that, women, it's all about who sells tickets. And if you're a female fighter and you sell tickets, promoters are going to put you on, and they should pay you. I mean, I would. If I had a woman that sold out the house, look, yeah, heck yeah, she's going to be at the top of the card and she's going to get paid. It doesn't matter.
You said you don't watch UFC, but you did fight a boxer who crossed over to UFC in Holly Holm. How did you go into that fight? Was Holly a tougher opponent than you thought, or
it was
did you have your hands full?
You know what, that was a fight. I had trained. I was in great shape, ready to fight Lucia Riker,
Right.
and Lucia pulled out, and then I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, basically BFE, fighting Holly Holmes, and I'm like, first of all, you know, she's a tall, running southpaw. I've trained for Lucia. We, you know, a totally different mindset, and now I'm here against somebody really that no one even knows. I don't even know who this person is. Yeah, I sucked. I had no ambition to really fight her. And I'm never going to be someone that fights her style. You know, Holly Holmes, a mover, and she's a left-handed mover. I'm never going to beat a left-handed mover. It doesn't matter if I was 10 years old, 20 years old, 30 years old, or what I am now, 50-something years old. I'm never going to beat one. And that was the case that night.
Now,
but I did predict that she would beat Ronda Rousey when they asked me, you know, well, how she beat Rousey. I'm like, well, her style, my style and Rousey are more like straightforward, aggressive, gonna come get you. I was like, Holly Holmes, Rousey will never get to her, and you know, I had never thought she would knock her out, but I did think she would win.
Boy, did she ever knock her out!
Yeah, she did.
So that, I mean, I guess that kills the question on if UFC or MMA would have been further along in its development and everything, would you have ever considered it?
Never.
Never?
Never.
No jiu-jitsu, no rolling, no nothing?
Never. Never. I would just have no interest to get kicked in the head. None. And I have no idea what they're doing on the ground. I don't know what they're doing down there.
Can't say we blame you. So we're going to talk about the promotion that you've got coming up in Florida, but you're a promoter now. Are there a crop of young fighters, either male or female, who you think, gosh, this is somebody to watch and wish that I could be part of their career right now?
Yeah, well, I on my personal, I have this kid, Anthony Sevilla. He's out of West Virginia, believe it or not. And he goes around, he spars with guys up in Philly and Pittsburgh. He's always traveling to spar. But a couple of weeks ago, he broke his wrist sparring. So he's not going to be on my show July. I'm so fortunate that with this fight, we have Alberto Palmetta as the main event. Alberto's coming off a spectacular 10th round knockout victory on Showbox. I think they fought in November, kind of right before all the shutdown, you know. So this card is loaded. We have Alberto Palmetta on there with Lucas Leon. Francisco Torres is fighting Cleotis Penderas out of California. Then we have local kids, Benny Aguilar, Randall Feliciano. The card is stacked. I think we have about 12 countries represented. You know, guys from all over the world. So it's going to be a nice card. We're going to be live on TCY, which is Argentinian TV, but we're also going to be on QCBroadcasting.com as a live stream. Then that's going to be pay-per-view, $14.99. It's going to be worth every penny. And believe it or not, we're Florida, so we're selling tickets.
That's what I was going to say. So how did that come about? So you're actually going to have a live audience.
Heck yeah. So if you're in Central Florida, which was my home for 20 years. I'm happy to be back, you know, to Florida to promote. Yeah, come say hello. Come see us. It's a great night of boxing. And the good thing is we're in a big building, the Ocean Center. It seats about 10,000. If we have 700, we'll be lucky. But social distancing will not be an issue. You know, we have all the floor seats. Everybody's going to be spread out. They already have the floor plan. I have masks for everybody that comes in. So it'll be a great night.
Oh, we lost her. There she is.
Hold on. Here we go. I
There
thought
we
I
go.
put it on do not disturb, but it's
Got a
okay.
phone
People
call.
disturbing me. Yeah, I thought I put on do not disturb. Did you have any problems with the commission in terms of testing? Are you testing all of the athletes? How is that process for you?
You know, Florida's a little different than Vegas and these places like, you know, ESPN and Top Rank are doing the shows. We it's voluntarily, you know, if the fighters feel more comfortable to test and want their opponent tested and things like that, then we're going to make sure that everybody's comfortable. But you know, fortunately for me as a small promoter right now, I do not have to quarantine everybody for days before the fight and then do the testing. It's all voluntary, so I'm good.
Nice.
We're good.
Are you enjoying the promoter side better than the boxing side, or is it a total different headache?
Never. Oh my God. I would so much rather be the fighter in the ring for a lot of reasons. It was just, I loved my job, but I was guaranteed a check at the end of the night. As the promoter, I'm only guaranteed that I'm going to pay out a lot of checks and, you know, I might walk away with no money or in the hole. So yeah, it's hard.
Hey, I used to promote amateur MMA in Texas, and if we broke even, that was a good night.
And you know what? I've done that for long enough, breaking even. I have to get, you know, to that next level. I have to get to where I don't have to make, you know, I don't have to be Don Kingrich from boxing, but I need to make a little money. I have to,
Sure.
it has to start making sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense for me to go crazy for weeks and weeks and weeks before the fight, trying to keep these fighters happy and then walk away with nothing.
Well,
yeah,
we are so happy to have had the time to speak with you, Christy. Such an amazing story of just overcoming everything that you've done. And before we let you go, I wanted to kind of circle back to something we touched on at the beginning. You know, it is Pride Month, and you did talk about, you know, you're living, you said, you know, basically alive for a big chunk of your life and finally coming to terms with who you are. And it's such an important month for so many people out there. Number one, you know, how are you recognizing the month, or are you recognizing the month? And two, you know, what's some words of, I guess, of encouragement to others who may be, you know, living that same life or having that difficulty, you know, coming to terms with who they are and letting others know who they are?
Wow. You know, I think that's harder. I think that's really a harder thing to reach out for than the domestic violence, to be honest. I think you can reach out to somebody, your friends, your family, and say, I'm in this bad situation. That's very hard. It's very hard because you don't know who to trust. But to tell someone that you're gay is, you really might lose them. You never know what the reaction is going to be. And I have to say that, you know, in 2020, the reaction is so much different and better than it was in 1983.
Yeah.
You know, now it's okay. But it does. I'm 52 years old now. I don't care like I did when I was very, very young, a teenager. I'm married to Lisa Hollowine, who, you know, we actually fought each other on the Lewis Rockland undercard.
Yes.
Yes. And, you know, we don't really talk about going to a gay bar or gay this or gay that, because we're just gay wherever we are. And the good thing, we do live in Austin, Texas, which is more relaxed. So, you know, people don't really give us a hard time or say anything. But actually, we're the same way, whether we're in Daytona, whether we're here or Las Vegas, it doesn't matter. We're a couple. And I feel so blessed that I can finally be the person that I am. And then I think back to, I hope other people can see us and say, wow, if they can do it and they can step out, so can I. So it's kind of lead by example.
Yeah, you talked about the organizations that you were working with. Can you give that information one more time? Both your domestic violence one and the one for the LGBTQ community.
My nonprofit is Christy's Champs, and what we do is it's basically just to bring awareness to domestic violence. Right now, we're setting up gyms across the country We're working in North Carolina, Texas, and Florida right now, West Virginia as well. And we're setting up gyms where the kids that are actually living in the domestic violence shelter can go 1 or 2 times a week to a boxing gym. And not only do they get to have the chance to do boxing, but they also will have access to computers, mentors, and just some good support, tutors, just to know that they have that boxing family as well as their mother back at the shelter. And sometimes these kids, they just need to feel part of a team, part of a family somewhere.
That's
Right.
awesome. We have a question that came in actually from one of our radio friends here in Las Vegas. Christy Martin used to manage Helga, the Snow Queen. Is it Risori?
Risori.
He want to know how come you guys never got in the ring.
Helga.
Do you get all of that? Do people often come at you like, why didn't this match happen? Why did that match happen?
Because I was just a payday for everybody. And Helga was, I don't know why I didn't invite her, but I do know who she is. I don't think she wasn't around like after I really, really started to making a bigger name. I don't know what even happened to her, but I do remember her name. So I don't know why the fight didn't happen. She got
other things to think about. I'm not going to be a payday today.
No more.
Well, on July 18th, you are having your pay-per-view on QCBroadcasting.com. Lots of live boxing, and you said, I believe it was $14.99 if people want to tune in. So Christy Martin's Fight Night is going to be live QC Broadcasting, and you can catch all the cool streaming action as well. And if you haven't, I would go back to all of our listeners and watchers here. If you haven't seen the ESPN feature story on her, go to the boxing section. It was last week, so now it's the boxing section. But it's a really powerful read about so many different levels and so many adversities and everything that you've overcome. So, Christy, we could sit here and we could talk to you all night about this stuff, but you got stuff to do, and we appreciate your time, and thank you so much for taking time out to just join us this evening.
Thank you, guys. And anytime, look, there's nothing I like more than to sit and talk boxing. So I could sit and talk boxing too. So
okay, you put that out. Say, you know what, we're gonna warn Amy, and
call Amy, hit Amy up and tell her, hey, so and so fell out tonight.
She told us. She told us we could hit her up. So
okay, that sounds good.
All right, thank you so much, Christy.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye now.